No, I couldn't tell, but there's a pool of blood. He's sitting on the back of the curb, sidewalk against a wall, um, probably somewhat in shock. His blood is pouring from either his mouth or his nose and has formed a pool on the pavement beneath, in between his legs, and as he's sitting against the wall, and then some other thugs come along and make him stand up, and first it appears that they're helping him to stand up, and then they empty his backpack, and people walk off just throwing the contents away that they don't want. Why did they steal these things if they didn't even want them? You know, these things are very disturbing. This is not about social change when you do things like this. This isn't about, rectitude. This is an abandonment of it. And if that's what we're about, then to hell with everything. If that's what's to prevail, then we're not going anywhere. I've had a number of rather important people that we've been on the verge or brink or edge, you might say, of bringing on the show here. Gerard Batten, for instance, there in the London area, is a member of European Parliament, and someone did connect with him, and it was possible he would come on the show. He said he took a look at the site though yesterday and decided it wasn't for him. Mr. Batten had there was a YouTube video which I was pointed toward, and Mr. Batten had asked for troops to be brought home from Afghanistan and Iraq to control the insurrection in and about London. And I thought about that. This person that connected Mr. Batten with me to potentially come on the show, it sent me to the YouTube video as well. And I don't really have time to watch these kinds of things. But, it's so disturbing to think that would be a reaction, but yet you can understand on that side of things that the first thing that has to happen if you're going to have a restoration of representation to the people so that we do have hope. And you see, we this whole idea of mathematically perfected economy proves we could restore hope immediately if we weren't denied representation. And so what's disturbing about this is, first of all, you've sent away these troops, and as Mr. Batten himself asserted, which was an encouraging point, those troops have been sent there, he more or less mentions, as an accusation, I might say. Although I should be careful about my language there. I don't want to accuse Mr. Batten of anything or that might not be shed his words in the proper light. But, he more or less alluded, at least, we could say, in a very soft way, to that they'd been sent over there just to make Tony Blair a millionaire in the United States. Well, that may or may not be so, but the question is, how does all this reaction to abuse of power just simply arise and need to be subdued somehow or destroyed, dismantled entirely, without regard to whatever may be protested against? This is the very problem. This isn't a one-way street that we just say, well, these people are against us somehow, therefore we have to go and slaughter their leaders and dismantle their organization and destroy anything and everything that they may be about. Well, of course, it's true that these organizations often deny the people representation as well. And so there's some credibility to these complaints against these insurrections. But at the same time, if we don't hear any reasonable complaint, just one, if we deny representation to any reasonable complaint about the state of affairs that we're imposing upon the world overall, somehow, by our apathy, by our disinterest, even to learn the fundamental roots of the problems around us, then we are contributors to the issues which are festering across the world. And because our actions, our own disinterest, our own lack of mastery of the issues before us, results in a persistence of denied representation, of failure to achieve and to establish resolution. Because our own actions result, or inaction, results in a persistence of denial of representation, these things fester across the world. They don't go away. So we can be happy and smug in our living room, watching the tube, hidden away from what's going on in the outside world and disinterested in it. But in truth, we are participants in the crimes against our fellows, our neighbors, who may well be aware of them, because it's a responsibility in any representative government across the world of each citizen to defend abuse of power or denial of rights of our fellows. So it's time for us to hear. Now, I remember when I was young and we had the civil rights demonstrations, which often precipitated into riots. Now, we have to be very careful when we say that people are just rioting. What happens is things reach a tender point. I was sent to several other YouTube videos, and in particular, I was very well impressed by an interview of Darcus Howe is his name, but I believe it was I can't remember for sure the news agency. It doesn't matter, because Mr. Howe was trying to explain that his son and his grandson were regularly searched by the police. Now, I have no idea whether that's really happened, but the thing is that as a responsible person, my ear was opened and I was ready to listen. And Mr. Howe attempted to explain that this was happening, and then when this person was shot over there, that this is why things have touched off as they have. And he was trying to explain that it was signaling something, I believe, to government, which needed to be resolved. And it's just not beyond the imagination of a regular person, such as we are, to realize what the need for representation is. Why are youths being searched regularly? Well, quite possibly, or probably we should say, they've resorted to crime, many of them. And in order to protect those who are prospering more than the youths are, the police may have dedicated themselves to general breach of rights against persons against unwarranted search and seizure, questioning, interruption of life, living in fear, or at least under persistent abuse, where any policeman might look you in the eyes, and if you don't engage him in just the way that he's intending, well, you're immediately searched for some reason. And of course, many police then are condemned to themselves to a pattern of living in which they become bitter against the people and tend more and more and more themselves to become abusive of their own power or authority. So Mr. Howe, in this interview with the BBC or whatever it was, begins to be interrupted as he's, trying to explain the reasons that this insurrection, as he preferred to call it, had erupted after this person had been shot dead by the police. Now, whatever the story is on this, perhaps, I'd heard a rumor that the person that was killed had returned fire, and that this was the reason for the fatal shooting. The thing is, these events have festered where people may tire, particularly in an environment where hope has just been utterly destroyed. They may tire of the abuse of the police, and friction and conflict therefore escalate. And so, in truth, it's society's inability to unite rationally upon solution, which is actually pitting the police against the people in such a way that people who have no hope eventually have nothing to lose, and every aggravation to rise up against the police, and those who just haven't listened and haven't woken from their comfortable seat before their television to say, this has been happening for a long time. It's been getting worse, and we have to do something about it. After all, every penny that we can earn, every possible breadwinner in the house together can barely keep us in our house, in our comfortable chairs any longer. Is there no solution? Do we never wake up? Do we just allow the world to disintegrate around ourselves until something like this happens? Well, of course, intelligent, responsible, and just people would never allow these things to degenerate to this state. And so I'm disappointed that Mr. Batten, he wrote me yesterday that he'd taken a look at the site, and I don't know which site he was referring to. It could have been TNS Radio, it could have been My Pages, about mathematically perfected economy, whatever. And he said, I'm sorry, it's not for me. Good luck. Well, what does this signify to us when a man who's a member of European Parliament, the people of the United Kingdom, Ireland, England, Scotland, Canada